Jetster's dictionary defines a game as a physical or mental competition conducted according to rules with the participants in opposition to each other. Well, thanks to cooperative games, we know that's not true, which, for the purposes of this over-equivocating review intro, it's important that we ask the question, what is a game? Because today's topic is the Lands of Galzyr, the cooperative or competitive narrative game by Snowdale Design. Lush and vibrant, or actually maybe flipped over to be blanketed in snow depending on the month, Galzyr is a sandbox of connected towns and locations of interest that, when paired with the publisher's web app, services your adventure. Each turn, you generally move and interact with some narrative moment, perhaps being at an appropriate quest location, having a particular pal in your crew, or a particular feature of your locale, or a random event based on your environment, all of which may or may not splinter down new narrative paths based on game state. The meat of the gameplay, such as it is deciding what you focus on during the limited time in a single session and how you respond to prompts in the narrative. Almost all choices rely on the outcome of a skill test by chucking a wad of dice, but succeed or failure, the result is just story. Sure, you hoped to con the gang members or push the boulder out of the way or win the log chopping contest, but failure just means that you were delayed or got less good stuff, but ultimately there's no pressure for success or failure. Galzyr is just a matter of experiencing the world. There's no overarching story that you're propelling towards, and almost any boon that you receive is impermanent and will go away over time, which is a cool system, but does mean that you're not investing in your character or game state in the same way that you would with a traditional campaign game. Once a number of rounds based on the player count ends, the person who earned the most cool outcomes registered in kind of a meaningless point system is declared winner. Game and character states are saved, and everything is put away. So it may seem like I'm pretty ho-hum on this game, but honestly, I haven't had a bad time with the 3 sessions that I've played so far. It's causing me to question what it is to play a game. I'm used to some clear objectives, some fail state, some contest between me and other players, or the game itself. Galzyr is more choose your own adventure with dice to help determine outcomes as extra steps than anything else. And I say that with plenty of experience with narrative adventure games like Arabian Nights, Agents of Smersh, and Eldritch Horror. But in the context of wanting to be a narrative sandbox that presents a low stakes, low barrier to entry, low confrontation, cozy small town adventure to wrap yourself like a blanket in, then it succeeds in that. The things I like best about the game are the library, which is really the infrastructure that allows the game to really be the adaptive, evolving game system that it is, and the skill system. One thing to know about the game is that even though it seems like it would be a campaign game with persistent elements that are carried over from game to game to game, impacted from decisions in the previous game, there's no clear end or beginning. The session is the session, whereas persistent elements are the impact on the world, facilitated by a library of cards registering what the game state is, month, season, what things might be accessible or searched for by specific events, or what things can be obtained by chance, are all levers pulled by the system. And yeah, there's an app that prompts the narrative delivery of the game, but it's the library itself which defines the world, your unique world of Galzyr. The skill system is the character-focused extension of that. Whenever there's a skill test, the player always rolls 5 dice, which can be the generic black dice, which have one result of each type, always available, but if you want, you can swap out any for colored dice corresponding to the 1 or 2 skill points you might have in a specific skill. These dice have a lot of results for the specific category and slightly better odds for the skill in its radial neighbors, but are effectively useless for tests focused on the other side of the wheel. These skills evolve over time, with players making choices about how characters develop, though in my experience it's always been an exchange rather than growth. You never have more total skills than that of a starting character. Sure, items come and go that further modify the stats, but like the game, you're evolving the characters rather than progressing them. Which is a cool thing, but that's also a double-edged sword that cuts through the positivity by bringing back my original concern. How much of a game is this if there are no real consequences? And not just fail states, but no progression, no momentum forward. There's no real sense of ownership of the characters. You're just like a witness to things happening in this world. Even your decisions rarely feel informed by plausible outcomes. Do you sneak in or fight the bandits? Sure, you might know what type of skill test it is and what your dice pool might look like, but there's no real way to infer what the impact to the story will be. And that story, because the game has to rely on procedural generated elements, is pretty flimsy. There are beautiful and fun and interesting moments, but no real through line. And the final kicker is that there's virtually no interaction aside from reading the story to one another. I mean, yes, in the competitive mode, you could theoretically compete to see who is the grand champion of story-based dice rolling by way of who has the most prestige. And in the cooperative mode, there is the barest minimal little help that you can provide to someone if you're on the same location while they're rolling dice for a test. But because your quests, your items, your story prompts are completely disconnected from one another, there's virtually no incentive to travel as a group. You might as well be treating it as you're playing different sessions, but concurrently, making for a very disconnected, passive time, which isn't what I come to games for. Look, like I said earlier, I have had some enjoyment with my sessions of the game, though a non-zero chunk of that is the pure academic enjoyment of seeing how different game systems operate. And this is a novel, interesting approach to narrative adventure game design. The writing is interesting, and I like the world, the system cultivated to make an evolving and vibrant sandbox with all kinds of unique moments. But it's hard to get past the feeling that I'm more witness than participant in the lands of Galzyr. If you're wanting a system that you can just drop in and vibe with, to let the cozy, lower stakes, albeit occasionally dire, adventure wash over you while you make some choose your own adventure choices and roll some dice along the way, then this might be your jam. However, if you come to games for the purposes of making interesting decisions, exploring systems to advance, challenge, and improve upon yourself, well, then I have a feeling that this ain't going to be the game for you. And that's our review, but let me know, what are your thoughts on this game? What are some of your favorite adventure games? Put it in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, thanks for being such an amazing community. You know that I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.